You know, everybody knows, or if you didn't know, I'm going to let you know, that Chris Matthews' wife is running for elected office. And she has a lot of the same people as far as fundraising, etc., that Hillary Clinton does. And Chris Matthews, he needs to not be allowed to interview anybody that has to do with the Clinton-Sanders race, because you can see his obvious bias as far as attacking the Sanders people versus how he treats the Clinton people. Now, in this particular clip, he is going to go full hog on the Sanders surrogate. Meanwhile, he's just going to play footsie with Randall, who is obviously a Clinton surrogate.
When I talk about the differences between Secretary Clinton and myself, one of the major differences is precisely how we raise money for our campaigns. Secretary Clinton has chosen to raise her money a different way with several super PACs. In addition to that, as you know, Secretary Clinton has given speeches on Wall Street for $225,000 a speech. Not a bad day's work. And I think a speech of that extraordinary magnitude should be shared with the American people.
Welcome back to Hardwell. That was Bernie Sanders, of course, continuing his assault on Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton last night while campaigning in suburban Philadelphia. Well, as the Democrats take their fight to Pennsylvania, Sanders isn't backing off his attacks on the former Secretary of State and likely Democratic nominee at this point. Vice President Joe Biden has given Sanders even more oxygen to attack Clinton just recently. In an interview with the New York Times, the Vice President hit back at Clinton's criticisms of Sanders, saying, "I like the idea of saying we can do much more, because we can. I don't think any Democrats ever once saying, we can't think that big. We got to really downsize here because it's not realistic. Come on, man." This is Biden. This is the Democratic Party. I'm not part of the party that says, well, we can't do it. Well, last night, Senator Sanders took full advantage of the Vice President's comments. He read the New York Times piece word for word at his rally and then said this.
I think the Vice President is exactly right. That is what this campaign is about. That's right. It is about having the courage to face the reality of American life today. Understand that that reality is not always a pleasant reality, but have the courage to take on the special interests who are preventing us from going forward.
Well, as the New York Times' John Harwood writes of Biden, he remains neutral in the battle between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, but not between their campaign styles. He'll take Mr. Sanders' aspirational approach over Mrs. Clinton's caution any day. That's interesting. Jeff Weaver's the campaign manager for Bernie Sanders. He's right here with me. And Ed Rendell, the former governor of Pennsylvania, former mayor of Philadelphia, he's backing Hillary Clinton. So this should be a heavyweight battle.
All right, now notice how he presses Jeff Weaver like crazy, but there's almost no pressure as far as Randall is concerned. Obviously, he's concentrating on Sanders because of the speech and his perceived attack on her. But still, I mean, he is acting like we don't understand what's going on here.
What do you make, Governor Rendell, of the fact that Bernie Sanders, not only is he sticking to this race, well, Hillary Clinton stuck in it 8 years ago, not especially a bad policy there, but he's sticking the knife in her. He's going after her on these speeches she's given. He's going after character. He's saying she took the money. He's mocking her, saying it must be pretty damn good speeches, 20 minutes for $250,000. That's more than my wife and I made in the whole year. I think that's brilliantly negative, but I do think it has a lasting effect going into November. What do you think?
I do. I think it'll make it much more difficult for Bernie Sanders to endorse Secretary Clinton after the convention in a credible way. The Republicans just put some of this stuff up on the air, and it'll attack Senator Sanders' credibility. And it's unfortunate. But, Chris, I think Bernie Sanders has every right to compete We've got 5 primaries coming up on Tuesday, including Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Connecticut, 3 fairly large states. I think the senator will look at the results on Tuesday night and Wednesday morning and assess what he wants to keep doing. And my hope is, and I believe Secretary Clinton is going to win all 3 of those states, my hope is that at that point, Bernie Sanders will say, I'm going to continue because I owe it to the people who are working their hearts out for me in California to be on the ballot. I owe it to my supporters to get nominated at the convention, but I'm going to stop the personal attacks. I'm going to talk about things that I want to do for this country and change the tone. And I hope that's what happens.
All right, now notice, Chris Matthews asked him a leading question, basically to get the response that he wanted, which was the response that Chris gave, and he just wanted Randall to give him confirmation. So, softball question, that one was easy.
Jeff, will that happen?
Well, it's not a personal attack at all. The fact that the secretary took these speeches and refuses to divulge what was said. There's a news story out today that shows that the vast majority of these people have business before the government, either as contractors or lobbyists. I think she should tell us what's in the speeches. That's what would get rid of this.
Will your candidate, Senator Sanders, ever endorse Hillary if she doesn't release these transcripts, or is that a condition?
All right, now, that's not a leading question. That's a probing or attacking question.
He's always said that he would endorse the nominee of the Democratic
Even
Party.
if she doesn't release these transcripts?
Right, but it's very damaging to her, not only in the primaries, but in the general election. Why won't she release what's in the speeches?
What does it say about her that she gave speeches for big money like that?
Well, the fact that she won't, well, let's see what's in them.
Well, what does it say about her politically?
Well, I think it was poor judgment, certainly.
That's a nice phrase. It's characteristic. You're going to
No, look, she should release what's in the speeches. That's what she should do.
You're suggesting
See,
she's not honest.
This will put it...
See, Chris is trying to get him to go in a certain direction, and Jeff Weaver is not going to bite. And Chris is going to continue to try to press him, but Jeff Weaver is smarter than that. So, again, you know, he's basically attacking Weaver and Sanders, where he threw one softball leading question to Rendell, and now this is basically an attack segment on Sanders, trying to get something out there that you and I both know, but that no smart politician would open a door to.
Are you suggesting she's honest in dealing with this issue?
It's not a question of honesty. It's a question of not telling what's in the speech. It's a lack of transparency. That's the problem.
Bingo. And what is her main problem? Transparency, and actually it is honesty, because people don't trust her. And Chris is throwing that out, trying to make Mr. Weaver say something controversial. He's not going to say something controversial. He's basically going to roll back to the transparency point, which is what she constantly says she's going to be oh so transparent. Not true.
I guess we disagree.
You don't think there's a lack of transparency?
I think it's all those things. I think that
Good move, Jeff. He turned his question back on him.
she has a problem taking that kind of money. I think even in a more reasonable level of speech making, 50, 75, something does blow people's minds when she makes more in 20 minutes than the Sanders family, husband and wife, make in a year. Yeah, I think that does bother people. Anyway.
Notice Chris didn't answer the question. He just, Weaver asked him if he thought it was a lack of transparency, and Chris didn't answer that question. Great move by Weaver.
Our April NBC Wall Street Journal poll said this. This is striking, and I think it gets to what your candidate's doing right now. 56% of both the Clinton and Trump people, their voters today, self-identified, are supporting their candidates mainly because they do not want the other to be president. In other words, they are voting against someone, not for someone. Governor, isn't this going to feed that? I mean, the fact that you have Republicans out there not particularly enamored of the temperament of Donald Trump or what he said publicly, but just being encouraged, or even more so, to dislike the Democratic candidate, probably Hillary Clinton.
Sure it is, Chris. There's no doubt about that. But look, the seminal question here is any money Hillary Clinton taken from Wall Street or anybody else affected a decision that she made? And Dana Bash asked Senator Sanders to name one decision that was affected by her taking this money, and Senator Sanders couldn't, not because he didn't know of any, because there are none.
That's bullshit. There is one, and Mr. Weaver is going to make mention of it, is that bankruptcy bill that protected the credit card companies. But again, notice Chris asked him another leading question into where he wanted to go, and it was a softball question.
And that's the truth. So yes, these attacks are going to continue to make it more difficult. They're going to feed the beast, and it's going to make it more difficult for a Democratic candidate who's for the same type of Supreme Court as Bernie Sanders is, who's for getting rid of income inequality as Bernie Sanders is, who's for universal health care as Bernie Sanders is, a different mode to get there. All of the things that Bernie Sanders believes in, he's jeopardizing by continuing to attack the person who's going to be the nominee.
Now, there is a veiled threat that if you don't stop this and we lose, it's going to be your fault that we lost. You know, that's a bunch of bullshit. And the difference between Sanders and Clinton is Sanders wants to go as far as possible, as hard as possible, and Clinton wants to take incremental or small steps over time, attempting possibly, but not probably, to get to the same place.
Respond to that.
Well, Hillary Clinton does not support what Bernie Sanders supports. He supports a $15 minimum wage. She does not.
No, the question, what deal did she strike to take that money from Goldman Sachs? What did she do for it?
Let me just rely on Elizabeth.
No, what did she do for it?
Let me just rely on Elizabeth Warren, who pointed out in a televised interview.
See, notice Chris, you know, the man starts to answer and Chris tries to cut him off to try to, I don't know, belittle him. And Jeff Weaver's not going for it.
Hillary Clinton's flip-flop on the bankruptcy bill and its impact on working class people. Let's just start there.
Was that related? Are you saying to her speaking for Goldman Sachs?
It absolutely was related because first she was on one side of that bill, then and she got campaign contributions from quote-unquote sources. The next thing you know, she flip-flops and goes to the other side of the bill, supporting the bill and the banks against regular everyday consumers. So yeah, I'm going to say it, that the banks make contributions that influenced or caused her to change her mind on the bankruptcy bill. I'll say it.
I'm just.
Well, let me ask you an example. Let's find it. Can you think, to answer the governor's question with Dana Bash asked, can you think of all your research, you must do opera research, did you ever come across any time where it looked like Hillary Clinton had responded favorably to something she wouldn't otherwise have done because of the money she took for a speech?
No.
Notice how he posed the question. You guys must have done research, so you must know everything that's going on. Hell, just because you do research, that doesn't mean you uncover everything. So, yeah, it may be legit to ask him, but Mr. Weaver already gave him an answer and an example. That's all that was needed. And now Chris is basically trying to belittle him, looking for additional information which may or may not be available.
But that's not how it works, Chris. You work in Washington. That's not how it works. In fact, Hillary Clinton the other day said, "Oh, when people give me money, I promise them a hearing." I don't know that I'll come out on their side, but at least they get a hearing.
No, that's not. She doesn't say that about speaking fees. She said that about campaigning. You're switching around here.
Campaign
Yeah, stop moving the question around.
It's not moving the question around.
Let me go back to the question.
That's the same people.
Your candidate right there, we saw him do it in Pennsylvania. He keeps doing it. What does he mean when he says, to answer the governor, Dana Bash, what does he mean when he says Hillary is taking money from Goldman Sachs? Why does he keep doing it?
Okay, now see, there goes Chris, getting nasty. And now, let me say this. If people contribute money to your campaign and you will promise them a hearing, okay, that's to your campaign. If they put money in your pocket, wouldn't you be even more willing to give them a hearing and give them more access and do more for them because they put money directly in your pocket? Chris Matthews is full of shit here.
What's the point?
Well, let's see what's in those speeches, and then I'll tell you what the point is.
But you don't know.
Well, no one knows what's in the speeches other than the secretary.
But you mean guilty till proven innocent, is what you're saying. No, that's what you're
People
saying.
don't give you all this money. 20
You're
minutes.
saying guilty till proven. In other words,
more than an
hour. In other words, Hillary Clinton has to clear herself of the innuendo of your charge that she's
One of
doing.
those speeches was 20 minutes long. She made more in a minute than a minimum wage worker makes in a year.
I made that point. Then what?
In a year, a minimum
Okay,
wage
therefore,
worker makes
how does that
a year.
affect public policy?
Because people have access to you once they give you money. That's how it works. You know that. You know.
Lady
I know you're
Bash,
asking-
Basically, Chris, people don't put money in your pocket for nothing, okay? So you're being totally disingenuous. Like Mr. Weaver said, let's see what's in the speeches. If those speeches were completely innocent, she would have released those speeches a long time ago. So that in itself will elicit curiosity to know what's in the speeches. This should have been put to bed a long time ago. Because if somebody's been given $225,000 multiple times for 20-minute speeches, they must have really liked what they heard, and the public has a right to know what was said. And I may be stupid about this, but I have never heard of a speaker maintaining all the rights to their paid speech before. But because of this situation, it was revealed that the Clintons, in their agreements to give speeches, maintain full control on the release of transcripts or audio recordings of those speeches. So now, that's just another level of secrecy as far as the Clintons are concerned. They are not transparent, and we need for them to bring all of this to the light of day.
Saying that she opens her door to Goldman Sachs for meetings because she gives a speech to them.
I think that when you're cozy with special interests, they get meetings that you wouldn't otherwise
How is she
get.
cozy?
Absolutely.
Her speaker bureau set her up with a speech. She made a ton of money. I agree with that. It's an outlandish amount of money. But what makes her cozy?
$15 million or
Why does it make her cozy?
From Wall Street.
What's that mean, cozy?
Chris, if you don't perceive this as being a problem, that's the problem.
I want you to explain to people what the problem is.
The problem is that when these big money interests give you money, they have access to you. Now, do they always get their way? No. But, things aren't as tough on them.
Give me an example where they've exploited that access with Hillary Clinton. Just one example.
Hillary Clinton has not said that she won't put Wall Street.
Jess, you're here to explain your case of your candidate. Give me one example where she was
the bankruptcy bill.
She was poor. That was a quid pro quo. You're saying that was a quid pro quo.
Her closeness with
you're saying that
her because that would be you're trying to get me to say that she committed a crime, which I'm not going to do.
Well, you're basically getting to it.
No, that's where you're getting to. That's not me. That's not where I'm.
Your candidate is going after Hillary Clinton for giving speeches for big money, and then he acutely says they must be really good speeches.
Oh, of course,
okay, what's the joke?
The joke is she won't release the transcripts. Tell us what's in the transcripts. She said she went to Wall Street.
So she has to clear herself of the charge.
She said she went and gave them what for.
Just to put your thoughts together. She has to clear herself of the charge. There might be a quid pro quo, but you don't know what the quid pro quo is. And you might find it in this haystack of transcripts. You might find it in there.
Okay, well, if you don't think voters want to know what's in the transcripts, then I think
of course you guys have been dog training people for weeks to say...
See, and there's Chris Matthews that they've been dog training. As soon as most people heard about those speeches, our curiosity was piqued. We want to know what the hell is in the damn speeches. And now Chris Matthews is going to make it look like the Bernie Sanders campaign has dog whistled us into being all over the speeches. But curiosity is a hell of a thing. Chris, you are turning into the biggest Hillary Clinton ass kisser that we have seen in a while.
It's like it's smart politics. Governor.
No, it's not just politics, it's substance.
Well, you don't know what the substance is, though.
The substance is that they won't release the transcripts.
Okay.
That's the substance.
Okay, great. I'm sorry to use up all this time. Governor,
Jeff Weaver is great.
Let me ask you this about Hillary Clinton. Is she going to win all 5 on Tuesday, do you think? How's it look in Maryland? And it looks in Delaware. We've got Rhode Island, with Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. It's a hell of a handful.
I don't know about Rhode Island, but I think she's going to win the other 4. But look, just to respond to Mr. Weaver, as you know, Chris, I probably raised more money than any elected official in the history of the state of Pennsylvania. And all I ever gave my contributors was the ability to come in and make their case. I could pass any lie detector test anywhere. If you ask me, did I ever do something for a contributor because they gave me money against the interest of the people, I would say no, and I would pass with flying colors. And it is really offensive to everyone who's ever been an honest and decent elected official, and that the majority of elected officials are honest and decent.
And that's the whole point. The majority of officials are honest and decent, but the minority of officials are not honest and decent. We won't know until we see the transcripts whether she's honest and decent or not.
To make the claim that both Mr. Weaver and, to some degree, Senator Sanders is making.
It's a totally. He just said that he gave people access to come in and make their case. The average man on the street.
But I also gave people access. But I also gave people access who I never met before, and who wrote me a letter and said, "We want to speak to you about environmental conditions in Hazelden."
Okay, he's mixing apples and oranges here, because if people gave him money, he gave them access. But I guarantee you that the people that wanted access oranges here.
I gave people access, but I never did anything as a quid pro quo, ever. And most
I'm confident
politicians
that's
don't. Well, I think it's true about Hillary Clinton, so we should get off this. Let's talk about substantive things.
We can end it as soon as she releases the transcript.
You know, Governor, I think they're going back to the Nixon era. I think they released the tapes 30, 40 years ago. They just got
There
it
was
in
a
their
lot of
brains.
those tapes.
I
There was a
know.
lot of
Look,
tapes
you
were-
guys, I know you found your little thing.
Well, no, the new thing is that the secretary
I know.
now apparently supports a 72%
Okay.
tax on soda.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well,
See, and there goes Chris Matthews belittling him again. So Chris Matthews is turned into a huge piece of shit, and he's one of the guys that they need to retire off of the prior primetime TV, because he's really turning into a dog, especially when it comes to Clinton.
talk about that off camera. It's of no interest. By the way, it's the Philadelphia soda tax that he's pushing. Anyway, 3 cents.